Welcome to the program, The Desk on Global Television. It's time for us to look at the very salient issues making the rounds, and you're welcome to the most compelling show on TV. Talking about The Desk, we'll be looking at very interesting talking points. First of all, we'll be looking at the regional membership as regards the U.S. general and senior officials holding talks with the Niger Republic junta. We're looking at what the implications of that meeting between this set of persons from the international perspective. We'll also be looking at the recent suspension of Senator Nigi for 3 months by the House, as regards what he said, the comments as regards budget pardon scandal. So we'll be looking at that very important issue. Then also we'll be taking you to Edo State, where the Edo Assembly has served Shaibu an impeachment notice. We'll be looking at the implications of that particular move by the House of Assembly in Edo State. Then we'll also be looking at how CBN awarded contract to Emefiele's wife in-laws, according to the EFCC, as we look at the Emefiele's gate this evening as regards big issues making the rounds in Nigeria. Also, we're casting our net wide as we look at Nigerian government announcing 80 standards for CNG vehicles and others, talking about the compressed natural gas vehicles. We'll be looking at what those standards are and the implications of those standards. Then also the federal government has also called for capital punishment for those bypassing meters and vandalism installations. We'll be looking at all these key issues on today's edition of the program, The Desk. And my guest on today's edition, one of them being Olubenga George, who is making a return to the program today. He was with us yesterday. He will be joining us via Zoom. And also Dr. Moses Sali, who is a political analyst, will be joining us on the program, The Desk. Not to forget the fact that we also have a very interesting talking point that has to do with a very popular sheikh in Kaduna State, Sheikh Gumi, who has said he wants to negotiate dialogue with the bandits and urging Mr. President to come along with him. These are all the big talking points we'll be looking at on today's edition of the program, The Desk. Let's make welcome our guest, Dr. Moses Sali. Good evening. Thank you for joining us on The Desk. Hello, good evening, Dr. Moses Sali. All right, let's welcome Olubenga George. Good evening, Olubenga George. Thank you for joining us on The Desk. Let's go for a very quick break. When we return from the break, I'll be introducing my guest, Dr. Moses Sali, and also Olubenga George, who is a journalist, and both of them have the big task of helping us look at all the talking points this evening. That will be after this break. Stay with us. All right, welcome back from that quick break. You're watching the Dex on Global Television. Now, time for us to introduce our guest. We've got via Zoom joining us is Dr. Moses Sali, who is a political analyst, political scientist, and current affairs analyst also to help us look at all the big talking points. Dr. Sali, nice to have you join us on the desk. Good evening. Dr. Sali, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I say good evening. Thanks for having
Good evening. Thank you for joining us on the desk. We're glad to have you. And Olugbenga George, thank you for also joining us on the desk. Olugbenga George, are you there? All right, let's kickstart the discussion with Dr. Moses Sali. Dr. Moses Sali, let's begin our discussion with the big talking points. United States General and top officials visited Niger on Tuesday to see the ruling junta renewing contact after the coup leaders ousted the elected leader, booted out French forces and moved closer to Russia. General Michael Langley, the commander of the U.S. African Command, was part of the delegation that is visiting Niger through Wednesday, the State Department said in a brief statement. The State Department said the U.S. delegation will hold talks with the junta on Niger's return to the democratic path and the future of security and development partnership. The United States still stations some 1,000 troops in Niger at a desert drone base built at the cost of $100 million. Although the movements have been limited since the coup, and Washington has curbed assistance to the government. Let's look at this, how important this meeting is, because the Secretary of State, Antony Blinken, paid a rare visit to Niger a year ago in hopes of showing up the Mohamed Bazoum, the elected president. How do you think this is going to pan out, this meeting? How strategic is it for the U.S. and for the Western allies?
Thank you for having me. When you talk about international relations and international politics, one thing that comes out clear is interest. Every nation has their interest, and they pursue it with everything they have. So I'm not surprised that that decision is coming up, because America has a lot of interest in it. Especially, they have a very strong drone base in Niger. That is one, and they also have their troops on ground. That is two, and they are also interested in the exploitation and exploration of the mineral resources such as uranium in Niger. So it's not a coincidence that they visited the when it comes to the issue of international relations, the national interest of the country becomes the driving force. So Americans, they must have sat down and they have thought over it, and they know from what has happened, France has lost its grip. There is a vacuum, so a superpower needs to come in quickly and fill up that vacuum, because if they leave it hanging, Russia is going to take it. So, it's a smart move, to protect their interests and also to be able to compete favorably with Russia, considering Russia's inroads into this country.
Okay, let's look at the fact that even the Russian has also, tried to build a relationship with Niger already before the U.S. is coming to the fore right now. How do you think this is going to pan out? Is this going to make it easier for the junta to, also return back to the ECOWAS bloc, or is it going to help the junta even extend its stay before returning back to democratic, rule?
No, in terms of returning back to ECOWAS, there is nothing to return to, because they have not been expelled. They are still members of ECOWAS. They have not been expelled. What they had was sanctions. And because of what played out recently, these sanctions have been relaxed. So they are full members. The only thing that we have not seen is that we've not seen them coming, attending meetings together with other presidents and head of government of other West African countries. But that does not mean that the backdoor diplomacy is not going on. It's ongoing. That aside, the U.S. visitation to the Junta is not going to stop Niger from participating in ECOWAS. I don't see that. They didn't go there. I don't think that's the reason why they visited them. The major reason why they visited them has to do with the U.S. interest in Niger. And their interest is so obvious, you know. If Niger is not a strategic country to U.S. Security, they will be investing over $100 million in building a drone base and having their physical force on ground. Because they see Niger as a strategic country, sharing border with, you know, with the Arabian world in terms of Libya and others. So they find it strategic that instead of, allowing that flank to be open so that these jihadists can just go in and from there move into West Africa, up to, from there through West Africa, they could access them up there. So the best thing for them to do is to have a drone base and have a force on ground that can be able to stop that from happening. So it's strategic. And also, you know that Niger is highly endowed with uranium. And uranium is one of the scarce mineral resources that the world is looking for, considering the contribution of uranium to energy and nuclear warheads and all that. So if France has been expelled, because all this while maybe they are, taking a docile position in that regard because France is exploiting their resources. But now that France has been expelled from there, they have seen a vacuum, and that vacuum is to come in and see what they can take out of. So it's a strategic move for the US, considering what they have.
All right. Okay. All right. Let's move on to the next talking point, which has to do with the budget pardon. Senate suspending Ningi for 3 months. The story has we are told that the Senate has suspended Senator Abdul Ningi for 3 months over the allegation he brought that the National Assembly passed 2 versions of the 2024 budget. He was suspended Tuesday on the floor of the Senate, and the Senate was turbocharged on Tuesday following the suspension of the senator representing Bauchi Central Senatorial District in the National Assembly. For you, do you think this was a fair, treatment to Senator Ningi, and do you think he's paying the price for speaking truth to power?
In my own personal opinion, I don't think it's a fair. When someone has made an allegation of that magnitude, what is required is that you investigate. When the investigation is concluded, then you take a decision. I don't know how much of investigation has taken place. We've not seen them, having committee, public hearing, or do one or two things that they normally do when something comes up before taking a decision. So if that has not been done and they took such decisions, to me, is draconian. To me, it's draconian because Nigeria is a democracy. And because Nigeria is a democracy, people have the freedom of speech. And I also try to use it to advise the senator and any other person that wants to speak on any issue of that magnitude. And whenever you want to come out to make such an decision, you must have your evidence at hand. If you say there are 2 versions of budget, passed, you must have the 2 versions so that even if we are being withholden or being targeted for speaking the truth, you'll be able to lift before the media and say, this is the 2 versions I'm talking about. At least you have evidence to do that. So if you don't have the evidence and they know that you don't have the evidence to substantiate your claim, they can go ahead and do whatever they want to do with you, like what has just happened. But to me, the proper thing to do is to thoroughly investigate that he is alive. Let him come before a committee to prove it that the budget that is being implemented is different from the one that was passed by the National Assembly. So if he can prove that, so you give him that benefit of that. But if you have not given him that opportunity to do that, and you go ahead and slam him because he spoke his mind, or he spoke his observation, or he spoke what you think is not right to you. I don't think that's the right thing to do. I don't think that's the right thing to do. But if he doesn't have the evidence for speaking such, then he deserves to be punished. If he does not have the evidence, because in this country people speak to the gallery. If he doesn't have the evidence that there are two versions of budget being implemented, then he should be punished for that. But if he has the evidence, I don't think punishing him with 3 months or thereabout of pension is the right thing. That's my own observation.
All right, we're going to get back to you quickly, Dr. Sally. Olugbenga George has just joined us. Olugbenga George, thank you for joining us on the desk.
Good evening. Thank you for having me.
All right, let's get your take as regards our first talking point. Okay, weigh in on the budget padding before we take you back to the issue of the U.S. Officials meeting with the Niger Republic junta. For the budget padding, news broke this evening that Senator Ningi has been suspended for 3 months for putting the House in disrepute and causing breach of peace. How do you see this panning out?
Well, as a true Nigerian, that is interested in the development of this country, I think I totally agree with the decision of the Senate, even though I also share in the thought of the former speaker that just spoke about having followed due process or having created a panel of inquiry. But I think the issue has actually gone beyond arranging a panel of inquiry to look into the matter because of the gravity of the matter in question. You will recall we spoke about this yesterday, and I said, that the fact that this particular budget we're talking about wasn't just passed yesterday, it wasn't just passed last week. It happened in January 2024, and Senator Ningi had the window of opportunity and enough time to have actually done his investigation. And if he is ever going to speak about it, he should actually approach that hallowed chamber with the evidence. And not just the hallowed chamber, since he didn't even make the first statement with the hallowed chamber, within the hallowed chamber from the beginning, maybe from the platform, from the BBC Hausa platform, where he made that allegation. I think he should have also addressed them and said, look, I have evidence. We've had several cases and instances in this country where people have evidence over such grievous matters. You see how they present it and say, I have my evidences. You cannot come, to the public, to the hallowed chamber where you have all of your colleagues, and then make such allegations and expect it to go scot-free. Between that yesterday and now, you can tell. And personally, I feel that since he has no evidence and if he's not able to prove further, if I were the Senate president, I would even sue him for defamation of character. And I think that the punishment that is just the suspension that is even meted out to him is just a very, very simple approach, to what can be done, to what should have been done to him. If you listen to the Senate leader, Senator Michael Okoyemi-Bamidele, and all of the issues that he raised, those were issues that I personally, as a Nigerian, thought we didn't have to get to over these matters yesterday. But he raised very salient issues, about the position of the North, about targeting that seat of the Senate president, and how a lot of people are not comfortable with the fact that Akpabio is the Senate president because he's from the South. And when he did those statistics, I actually sat back a little to look at it. Really, we had Senator David Mark, who was Senate president for 8 years in this country. We had Senator Ahmed Lawan, the immediate past Senate president, who was the predecessor of Senator Akpabio. We also had we've had a lot of them. As long as it's in the North, it is convenient. I do not like I said yesterday, I do not like us to continue to have conversations in this line, and it sounds divisive for me. And that's the basis of, my my position, especially regarding Senator Ningi's allegations over this matter. Now that this decision has been taken, I also like what the Senate President said, or the Senate leader, where he said, if by tomorrow, if the House decides to sit and after due deliberation and investigation over the matter, they can make another decision to say, well, Senator Ningi, come back. And if Senator Ningi wasn't wrong initially, I think he wouldn't have needed to apologize to the House like he did when he started his statement, on the floor of the House today. So the House, they have their standing rules, and it is what the rules says they should do that they have done. They have the right to suspend whatever member they feel have erred, from the rules. And I believe that Senator Ningi also understands. He's long been around to understand some of these issues. He's not a baby senator like many of his other colleagues are. He's served for enough time in the House, and I think he should know these rules. So if you are going to make such claims, then you should have your evidence handy, and you should be able to tell, because like many Nigerians are celebrating it, he will have become the hero of the people, if he actually presented the evidences. And then you're talking about, okay, there are so many issues around that. Well, I just got off the phone and, somebody was talking about, how about the revelation of the 500 million naira, that came up in the course of this conversation. And I'm like, yes, let us stop being hypocritical in this country. We know quite well that the position of the legislation is not to implement projects, but it has become a norm that senators and House of Assembly, House of Representatives, and those in the National Assembly get constituency allowances to do constituency projects. So if you are saying these people do not need to do constituency projects anymore, then that should be another conversation. But for this case, I think I totally agree with the fact that yes, Senator Ningi should be suspended for the fact that, number one, he brought divisiveness into the House, and he brought unfounded claims, claims that do not have evidences. I said, he who must allege must prove. That's what the law says. So he did not bring his proofs, just come and you come to, how much you can put, he has already put, the National Assembly, especially the red chambers, into disrepute before the already untrusting Nigerian public, before the Nigerian public naturally do not trust our leaders. We don't trust them because of past track record that they have when it comes to corruption and all of that. So there's already a trust lacuna. Then you come, not minding whatever, and you just throw all of your colleagues in the mud. What if it causes a ripple effect that the Nigerian people begin to react, in a disorderly manner? So I think it's the right decision. And the Senate, have also been called to account. They now need to know, they now already know that the Nigerian people are watching every step of the action. And of course, this budget also will go into further scrutiny, and we'll be able to see the implementation in the next maybe 10 months now. We'll be able to see how far they're able to go with this budget provision of the 2024 fiscal year.
Okay. To end the conversation, George, let me ask you, do you think this might have a ripple negative effect where other senators or House of Rep members might be slow to come out, even if they do have evidences, come out to speak truth to power?
Well, speaking truth to power does not necessarily mean that you go to the media and make unfounded claims. I do not think that this decision has actually deterred anyone. If you have any allegations and these allegations are founded, these allegations have evidences, I do not think that it deters you from bringing it to the fore. I do not think so, except for a lot of people who are interpreting it, interpreting the situation from maybe the bias or political point of view. I think just looking at it as ordinary Nigerians that study, the turn of things in the country, study political situations as they unfold, I think it is quite clear enough. And it is also a warning, to many of the members of the National Assembly who have nefarious motives, and nursing these motives tacitly in a bid to maybe distort the House and distort what they do. I know they are united in their looting. Don't get me wrong, and I do not support, the looting of the country to the point where it has come to. But I am saying that if you must allege, if you must say anything against your colleagues, you must prove it to the Nigerian public so that, you can be justified for your claims.
George, the U.S. Officials did meet with the Niger junta today as regards how they can return back to democratic path. How strategic do you think that move was?
Well, it's a very strategic move, and for me, it is interesting when you look at it in terms of diplomatic relation. Consider the fact that the Niger Republic that we speak of at the moment, just chased away their former colonial masters who have held the country, who have had a grip, on the country and especially that region for a while. France have been asked to leave, and now the U.S. is trying to establish, relations. Let's not forget that earlier last year, the U.S. had been on ground, and the U.S. also has an investment which is a drone site that's about $100 million, worth of investment in Niger Republic. So I think they have a reason to continue to seek for collaboration between the two countries. However, what we'll be watching in the diplomatic community is how the Niger Republic will be able to manage the relationship between shaking hands with the United States and Russia, who have been seen to be patronizing that country and its neighbors. Talking about Burkina Faso and Mali of late. We will wait to see what that means. But for me, if you interpret it ordinarily, it means that if they're able to maintain and sustain the relationship, which is going to be quite difficult, it's going to be very dicey. But if they're able to, we might now be looking at an accelerated spate of development in Niger Republic. If they're able to manage it effectively, then no one will perhaps have the kind of strong dominance that France had over that country for the period of time that it did. It might mean economic independence. And if the recent submission of Dr. Dele Alaki, Nigeria's solid minerals minister, if it's anything to go by, where he suggested that African countries should no longer go ahead to borrow loans, but should use the mineral resources in their countries as collateral for loans. They should use it instead of saying, okay, give us money that will repay. We have these mineral resources. You have always come here. Don't come and plunder us. This is the worst you can get for this number of years you are going to mine. I think it sounds like a good deal for me. And if Niger Republic is able to take advantage of that, we'll have Russia, we'll have the US, doing their things separately and bringing development to Niger Republic. And eventually, restoring peace. When we talk about this issue of peace now, where democratic governance is concerned, that's the major interest of the United States, in Niger, by the way, to restore peace, and because they were going to help with the post-President Bazoum, out of the country to stabilize his government before this junta took over. But Russia is not really interested in whether it's a democratic government or otherwise. So the country will have to weigh into it, weigh which one serves best. And I think ECOWAS can also, provide advisory in this regard and see who best serves the purpose of democracy and who best serves the purpose of development in Niger Republic.
All right, well said there. All right, let's quickly go to the next talking point. We've got Dr. Moses Sali also with us. Dr. Moses Sali, let's get your first reaction as regards the Edo State House of Assembly has directed that the impeachment notice on the state deputy governor, Philip Shaibu, be published in national dailies. This followed the alleged refusal of the deputy governor to acknowledge the notice served on him by the House last week. Last Wednesday, the lawmakers commenced impeachment proceedings against Shaibu, accusing him of perjury and leaking of government secret. The impeachment notice is believed to be the latest development in the rift between Shaibu and his principal, Governor Godwin Obaseki. There has been an easy calm between the deputy governor and his principal since last year, when Shaibu declared his interest in joining this year's governorship race. For you, are you worried what this might snowball into?
Yeah, I'm a bit worried because this crisis, if it's not well managed, could bring about a lot of political violence in that state, considering the players who are in the game. We know Shaibu as being a student union leader.
Sure.
He had a lot of support of the youth around him. And this youth, if they are not well tamed or managed, could bring a lot of violence. So I see that may happen, especially as the campaign towards the election is about to intensify. They bring a lot of violence to the state and destabilize the state. But notwithstanding, that does not mean if they have enough evidence against his behavior enough, that doesn't stop the State House of Assembly from proceeding to impeach him from office. Because the major accusation is that he leaked very secret information of the government to the public, which he ought not to. So if he knows he didn't do that, if you go through the process of investigation, because the impeachment itself is a process of investigation. You subject yourself to that process. When they send you a letter, the letter sent to you has, some of the things that they felt you have done wrong. Then you also respond, either by writing or by appearing before a committee and all that. So you don't run away from it. The political dimension of what is going on is that he has an ambition that he couldn't tame. He wants to succeed his boss, and his boss does not want him to succeed him. So that is
is he right? Does Governor Obaseki have the right to decide if Philip Shaibu should succeed him or not? Shouldn't it be the right and the responsibility of the electorate to make that decision?
The issue of whether it's right or wrong, every politics is local. Considering the kind of politics that we are playing in Nigeria right now, a sitting governor will so much influence to determine who succeeds him. It's not only limited to Edo State. We saw what happened in other places. Look at the one in Kogi that just happened. You see how the anointed candidate emerged to succeed the former governor. Rivers, in other places around the country like that, because of the weak political institutions that we have, where citizens' choices are not the only determinant for who occupies a political office. So until we get there, until we reform our political system in such a way that an incumbent does not, wield so much influence to determine who succeeds him, then we can now talk about what Shaibu is trying to do. But in this instance, Shaibu is just fighting the battle that he doesn't really have the clouds to overcome. Because if you look at what has happened, look at the primary election. When he realized that if he should put himself in the mainstream of the election, he's not going to come near, he's not going to win anything. He went for a parallel primary and declared himself.
Okay, we can barely hear you, Moses. Dr. Moses, we can barely hear you.
So he conducted a parallel primary. That's what I'm trying to say.
Okay. We've lost your audio again. Okay, I think Dr. Moses Sali tried to I don't know. We
Can
are
you hear
missing.
me?
You can get your audio. If you could hear me, just try to reject so that we can get your audio loud and clear. We can hear you. All right, let's
Can
quickly
you hear me
run
now?
to Olugbenga, Georgia, while we wait for Dr. Sally to sort his audio mix up. George, let's look at what's playing out in Edo State, where the House of Assembly, would you say they're playing the devil's advocate or playing to the script of Governor Godwin Obaseki by, starting the process of impeachment on the deputy governor?
I think it's a rhetoric question as far as I'm concerned. It's just a matter of playing the devil's advocate. In the Edo State case, Governor Obaseki have wielded so much power, as the executive governor, that one would wonder if it is a militocratic state, because I do not know. I'm still wondering if we are still practicing democracy in this country. Yes, I understand that it is a political trend, and every incumbent governor have at one point or the other tried to wield that hand in directing the affairs of who becomes their next successor. And the clear examples, of course, were there. Kogi was there. Kogi is there. The clear example of Rivers is there, and all the other examples. But what bothers me really is to what extent we will continue in this line. For me, if we say it is democracy, then it should be a government of the people, for the people, and by the people. Why is Governor Obaseki bent on ensuring that his deputy does not become the next governor? And if he knows he doesn't really have the support and popularity of the people, why doesn't he just simply leave him to go and try his luck at the polls? Why using the party? For me, it's just a reflection of the fact that the executive arm of government in Nigeria is a totalitarian arm, that rests its influence on every other arm. You see how across how even for the judiciary, how some state governors in the former administration, you say how the federal government, the president, went after the houses of judges and all of that. It tells you that no arm is actually independent, like the law stipulates that they should be. No arm of government is independent, and that is really despicable. And that is not the kind of democracy that we actually said. Democracy is democracy when each arm of government is independent, when each of them can play their roles effectively without interference or intrusion or interruption from any other arm. They are meant to, the arms of government, are meant to checkmate each other. They are meant to expose where one is not performing optimally, and they are meant to expose where one is overperforming or trying to wrest their influence. The center of governance generally should be for the people, should be toward how to better the lot and lives of those they govern, and not who becomes the next successor. If you have done well, why do you think you need to cover your track? That is my major question for many of the leaders who are bent on installing a successor. Yes, the people have the right to choose, and this is democracy. If the people brought you in, why don't you give the people? Why deny the people of their right to bring the next person in? How can you be in power for 4 years, 8 years, and then think that you still have to be the one to determine the fate of the people after? Give them the opportunity, to judge, to score your government by deciding to continue with protecting your legacy or bringing in an entirely new person. And by the way, it makes governance boring if it is just the same set of people that continues to recycle themselves like we have seen in Nigeria. And that is why development has been far from the state. We must move away from that. The state assembly must realize that they are an independent body that is statutorily backed up, to perform functions by the law, by the Nigerian constitution. And they must make sure that they play their part to the letter in the fulfillment and the entrenchment of the provisions of this constitution. How can a state assembly, be at the whims and caprices of the executive governor and do everything that the governor says? I'm still checking. I'm still trying to see what that independent assembly in Nigeria that have been able to, stand firmly against the will of their governor, that have been able to stand on the side of the people. And it continues to reflect that the lacuna continues to get wider when those in power, gather themselves together against the people. It's a gang up against the Nigerian people. And I've been saying this, and I continue to say that it is time that the Nigerian citizens wake up and also have their own umpire. The people cannot get to power no politician can get to power if the people do not come out to support them in a democracy. I think it is time that the Nigerian people begin to take a proper track, of how governance is being done in the state, and see and react, to it appropriately, and not subject themselves to the pitances that politicians drop every single time that they need their attention to win an election. That's the time when you see the Nigerian people, they will wear all these their branded t-shirts, and I feel ashamed for many of them. Why are you doing this? Somebody that does not care about you, somebody the Nigerian people should revolt. And when I'm saying revolt, I'm not saying go violent, but there are ways to revolt. What if we say we are not voting? What if we say present candidate, let the candidates that you choose be involved, and let's stop all of this. Let people who are passionate, let people who are humane, let them seek to enter into power so that good decisions can be made, across the different strata of government. The executive, the resting power, and at such level, for me, is to what end? Look at the Edo State issue. It's really annoying as far as I'm concerned. You remember at a point, the governor said for him not to be impeached, he had to sign, an agreement that he would not contest. How can you ask somebody to sign that he will not contest his own constitutional right? How can you tell him to sign against, his own right? I think it's a far cry, and it has come to a point where the instrumentality of the law needs to be addressed. Everybody should not just look away from it, that it is the responsibility of, it is their business in Edo State. Edo State is a vital part of Nigeria, and the people deserve to choose their governor. The people deserve to choose who leads them. And in case the person does not win, but everybody should have the ability to try, as long as the law does not stop them from doing so. That's my submission.
All right, let's move on to the next talking point. CBN, how CBN awarded contracts to Emefiele's wife, in-law, EFCC is talking. A witness of the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, Agboro Omowera, on Monday told the Federal High Court in Maitama that 10 officials of the Central Bank of Nigeria, including the former CBN governor, minuted on the document for the award of multi-million Naira contract to April 1616 and Architect TechCon Nigeria Limited. The EFCC accused Emefiele of using his position to CBN laws and policies and due process can be circumvented just to give an undue advantage, corrupt advantage to siblings or relatives or friends of those in power. George, are you there? Olukbenga, George, are you there? Or let's see if we've got Dr. Sally there. Dr. Sally, are you with us? All right, let's go for a very quick break. When we return from the break, hopefully one of our guests will be with us let's get the views as regards the issue of the EFCC prosecuting former governor of the CBN, Godwin Emefiele's wife, Margaret. Stay with us. All right, welcome back from that quick break. You're still watching The Desk on Global Television, and we're on the talking point that has to do with the Emefiele gate and witnesses, recounting how 10 persons minuted on the document that led to the award of a multi-million contract to April 1616 and the Aki TechCon Nigeria Limited, which Margaret Emefiele is a member of the board of directors. Let's look at the process that is supposed to be gone through by the CBN before awards are given, and we're told that 10 persons denominated on that document. How faulty would you say the procurement process of the CBN is, and how leaky and how worried should Nigerians be if that process can be circumvented to have an undue advantage to any person?
Well, I think the current situation already speaks for itself. The administration, especially toward the exit of Emefiele at the CBN, is one that one would say is a self-aggrandizing administration that is complicit. I mean, a lot of things are wrong about the Emefiele gate and about the Emefiele administration, especially toward the tail end. And I wouldn't be surprised at this moment to hear nothing is shocking to us anymore. A lot of things have been uncovered, in the course of this 1 year plus that this investigation has started. Quite a lot of things have been uncovered, and I know that a lot more will still be uncovered. For me, it's about strengthening institutions, really, because one of the challenges in Nigeria right now is the dominance and the supremacy of individuals over institutions. So because somebody, holds a position, is able to break every protocol. Now, break every single protocol just, to ensure that he achieves his personal goals. And this is what has brought the country to where it is at the moment. Emefiele, I'm also expecting, since this investigation started, that some names, ought to have been mentioned, and those names also be dragged alongside. It should not just be a scapegoating kind of investigation. I think it should be more of actually seeking for truth, seeking for justice. A lot of people have been fingered, since the investigation of the Emefiele started, and
all right, I think we lost a judge there. Dr. Sali, are you there? Dr. Moses Sali, are you there? Okay, I think we lost both gentlemen as we look at the conversation that has to do with the Emefiele's gate and the EFCC probing the wife's infraction. Okay, George, can you kindly wrap up your summation as regards the Emefiele gate?
All right, so my submission is that Nigeria should look further to other people who are complicit in many of the atrocities of the former CBN governor's activities when he was in power as the Central Bank of Nigeria governor. Nigeria should look into it and bring other people on board. It should not just be a scapegoating kind of punishment at all. It should be that everybody that is complicit, if it is wife, if it is children, if it is relative, if it is associates and colleagues, across board, all of them should be brought to the fore. Then secondly, we should seek to strengthen the Nigerian institution across board. Almost every institution is controlled by an individual, and it is wrong. The institution should be stronger than individuals and not the other way around like we currently have. Once people have access into a particular office, they become the high lord and master of that office. That should stop. Our institution should be strong. That is the only way we can build a sustainable economy. That is the only way we can build a sustainable society where peace and justice does reign, and where development can also take place.
Okay, just a quick one. Let's wrap up the whole show with the talk about insecurity. Sheikh Gumi lobbies Tinubu Back for Bandit, how disturbing is it that Sheikh Gumi again is still angling to dialogue with the federal government on behalf of the bandits? Shouldn't we get worried his affiliation with this bandit and the fact that he's pushing to want to speak on their behalf, even when these same bandits have caused chaos and mayhem and killed the Nigerians? Shouldn't he be talking to our security agencies and, if possible, made to tell more than he knows?
Well, for me, I even think it's long overdue. I thought he had actually rested, over this matter and has decided to take the position for the people. But it seems to have, he has been bandit spokesperson for more than 3 going to 4 years now. And I do not think that we need any other evidences for the government to have reined him in. I think the government should call Sheikh Gumi to order and all his other cohorts who continue to solicit and ask for amnesty, ask for whatever for the bandits. If we consider the cost, of the damage, not to talk about the loss of lives, not to talk about other things, that the Nigerian state have lost due to the activity of these bandits, then I think anyone that speaks on their behalf should be beheaded. We should not even be talking about it in public. It's a shameful thing, as far as I'm concerned, that we have someone with so much temerity, with so much audacity, coming to talk to the Nigerian people, coming to talk to the Nigerian government, to talk about negotiation. I even think at this point that they say kinetic and non-kinetic approach. I think we have gotten to a point where there is no negotiation. It should be kinetic. We should go and melt them out. We have gone past talking about whether we should dialogue what. We have gone past that. Nigeria, should put its feet on the ground and ensure that, at every opportunity that these bandits are neutralized. At every opportunity that we have. Look at the affrontation, the recent one, where they are saying they are demanding 40 trillion naira for kidnapping 40 people from the Nigerian state and 150 bikes. I think it's a shame on us. I feel really ashamed, that we have come to this state. I understand that the security agencies are trying to do what they can, but their best is obviously not enough. And I think government needs to bring everybody, whether in the political class, in the religious class, wherever they are, that is found culpable or culprit in any manner, that might have an idea of the operation of these people, including Sheikh Gumi, who is leading this conversation. They should be brought to the table of conversation. They should be not just given tea to talk. They should be quizzed critically to tell the world and tell Nigerians what they know about the activity of bandits and why it has taken so long for the Nigerian state, despite all efforts, to bring this situation to a reasonable state. And it has defied every approach. It has defied every government effort. And instead of reduce, it continues to exacerbate. It continues to increase. I think it is because these bandits continue to have the effrontery to churn out all these annoying, nauseating positions that they churn out because they have the likes of Sheikh Gumi who will always speak on their behalf.
All right, that's how we're going to call it a wrap on today's edition. I want to say thank you, Lugbenga George, who is an ASA journalist right here in the Federal Capital Territory, and to Dr. Moses Sali, a political scientist. Thank you for joining us on the program, The Desk, and that's how much time we allow us to take on today's edition. I want to say thank you for you joining us from home and being part of the most compelling TV talk show, The Desk on Global Television. My name is Anthony Momodu, saying let's do this again tomorrow. Good evening.